one, as the IPC itself said, we need to get a ceasefire. And that is the best way, bar none, to alleviate the humanitarian situation on the ground and alleviate the very real, very tragic of the situation of the Palestinian people. And that is why we are working every day to try to get a ceasefire. It's why we were so disappointed that Hamas rejected the ceasefire proposal that was on the table, that the United Nations...
Welcome back, America. That was Matthew Miller, for the first time using the word rejected in connection with Hamas's rejection of many peace offers by the State of Israel. I'm joined by Dr. Michael Oren from Israel. Good morning, Dr. Oren, former ambassador to the United States. What did you make of Matthew Miller finally saying the quiet part out loud? Hamas said no.
Good morning. Morning, Hugh. Actually, I'm back in Washington, up on the Hill yesterday. Very interesting. Yeah, I go back and forth. You know, don't ask me what time zone I'm in. Yesterday with a good friend of ours, Ken Calvert, Congressman. He sends his best.
Oh, yes.
And great, terrific friend of Israel. Great American. Also on the other side of the aisle with Kathy Manning from North Carolina, also a great friend. And the major issue here is now the delay in shipments of armaments to Israel. After a week and a half of back and forth, now finally in this city, they're admitting that there are delays. And I heard it firsthand yesterday. There are delays. And so everyone was giving Netanyahu a very, very hard time coming out publicly in that. And then there was all these denials from the White House. Now there's not denials. We had the defense minister here this week, Yoav Gallant, trying to get these delays solved. Apparently he has not. And it makes no sense to me. Okay, here it was no sense. Here you have Matthew Miller saying that Hamas has rejected it. Okay, he used the R word here. Big deal. We know that Hamas rejected it. Why is Hamas rejecting it? Hamas rejected it because Mr. Sinwar, the head of Hamas, believes that time is on his side. Right? He believes that the longer he waits, there'll be more pressure on Israel to agree not just to a temporary ceasefire, but to a permanent ceasefire and a total withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Hamas wins. Game over. Game over. And what leads him to believe this? The reason to believe this is things like the delay on the supply of American munitions to Israel. Because why delay them? Now, what's really makes no sense to me is that the only way to get Hamas to agree to a ceasefire is by increasing the military pressure on Israel, not putting the military pressure on Israel. That I don't get. And what's even worse is that as long as Hamas doesn't accept a ceasefire, Hezbollah won't accept a ceasefire. So these policies are contributing to the possibility of the outbreak of a regional conflagration in which the United States could become entangled. And that's what I don't get.
When you met yesterday with Congressman Ken Calvert, as you said, a good friend of mine, a good friend of yours. And for the benefit of our new audience, we have a new affiliate, Dr. Oren, in Alabama on the Tennessee River, Muscle Shoals. And for their benefit, Dr. Oren was Israel's ambassador to the United States for many years. He speaks flawless English because he was born and raised in America. And Ken Calvert is from California, chairman of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee on Approp, so he matters a great deal. I know why you met with him. Did Ken Calvert confirm for you that they're slow walking everything, and this is greatly dangerous to the Jewish state?
I don't want to reveal parts of our conversation. Sorry, we just had a breakdown of. Hold it. We're right with you. Hold it.
There you are. You're back.
We are. We're almost there.
Michael.
Startup Nation. It's called the Fall Down Nation here in Washington. You got me? You got the top of my head.
Yep.
All right, I'm there. Back. I don't want to reveal parts of our conversation. They were confidential. I think it's clear that that even now they're saying publicly that there are delays. Now the question is: are the delays intentional? Are they caused by bureaucracy? Are they caused by the fact that starting in December, the president ceased expediting the supply of arms to Israel? Now, before that, the president had actually done an end run around Congress and didn't require congressional approval for these supplies. Usually, you do require congressional approval, and now the supplies are sort of somehow dragged down or are stuck in bureaucracy, Washington bureaucracy, and we know about that. Or is it all political? Is it political that someone here thinks that by delaying munitions to Israel, you're going to increase the chances for a ceasefire with Hamas, and you're going to decrease the chances of a major war breaking out between Israel and Hezbollah? I think exactly the opposite is the case.
Dr. Oren, tonight it's debate night. I'll be on the air from 7 to 9 talking about it, and the Salem News Channel will be on the air from 5 until the debate and after the debate. What would you like asked tonight? And then I'm going to ask you to stick around after we hear the music so that we can talk a couple more seconds about the debate tonight. What would you like to hear? We have 1 minute to the break.
I want to hear a reiteration of America's ironclad commitment to Israel's security. At this point, we have to be an ironclad commitment to our existence. And I'd love to hear, I don't know if we can hear, that the United States is willing to put teeth into don't. Okay, you remember the president said back in October to both Iran and Hezbollah, don't dare attack Israel, don't get involved in this war. And that don't has to be reinforced now, not just passively, but actively. And having an unequivocal message sent to our enemies who want to destroy us that the United States will simply not let that happen.
Dr. Oren, there is a story in the Times of Israel this morning that Western nations are exploring where they can evacuate people from in Lebanon on the coast. They obviously expect a war. I obviously expect a war. You actually wanted a preemptive strike, along with, I believe, a couple members of the war cabinet wanted a preemptive strike on October 8th on Hezbollah. But it is what it is. We are where we are, and now everyone's armed to the teeth up north, and 100,000 Israelis are displaced. There has to be a war. When do you think it's going to come up? What do you want them to talk about on the debate tonight with regards to Hezbollah and their violation of the UN Security Council resolution from 2006?
That's why I'm in Washington, Hugh. I'm in Washington to raise awareness about the situation up north because it's almost not being reported in much of the press here. It's not being discussed, and certainly as the debate is about to happen, that's the only thing that people are focused on. Uh, and uh, and it is a what can I say? It's a hair trigger situation. We're one missile away from regional war. What's that missile? That's the missile that hits a schoolhouse or hits an army base and kills a large number of children or a large number of soldiers. And Israel, the Israeli government, which is already under immense pressure to take robust military action against Hezbollah, will have no choice but to launch that type of operation. And Hezbollah, as I said frequently on this program, is a strategic threat as opposed to Hamas, which is a tactical threat. We're talking about a major war, 150 to 170,000 rockets being fired at our cities, our utilities, our airfields, at Dimona, everywhere. And a terrorist force which is 4 times the size of that of Hamas. So it's a major conflagration, and it can happen. Hezbollah has been putting Israel in the one position that is totally intolerable. Not just 100,000 people not being at home. Hezbollah is engaging in a war of attrition against us, and it's a creeping war of attrition because the rockets keep on going further south. You know, some of your Christian listeners may know where Capernaum is, or where the Jordan baptismal site is. That's where rockets are falling right now, near Nazareth too. So this is an intolerable situation. Israel cannot forbear much longer, cannot withhold its fire. And the
Dr.
hope
Oren,
is
the
that the
question I
United
have to
States will
ask
stand
you.
by us.
I listen almost every day to the Times of Israel Daily Update podcast, and 19 out of 20 times I love it. They have one correspondent, Sue Surkis, who's from the hard left. I mean, she's really a hard lefty, and she's green, which is fine. I don't mind that. But yesterday, she basically scared everyone to death who heard it, saying that Hezbollah will render Israel without power and without gas within 3 days, and there's no grid, and we don't have enough solar panels, and we're going to be out of it's going to be intolerable. People will be in their safe rooms for a week at a time without air. I think that can't be the case because environmentalist reporters are always activists. How great of a threat is it to the power grid of Israel from Hezbollah? Will
Unfortunately,
it
she's right.
really go dark?
The head of the Israeli, the head. Unfortunately, she's right. The head of the Israeli electrical grid came out and said the same thing about a week and a half ago. And yes, it's a dire threat, which is why Israel's going to have to act quickly, very quickly. It's not Gaza. It's not even the 6 day war. It is a 1-2 day war where the Israeli army is going to have to move in very fast to southern Lebanon. There are 200 villages in there. Beneath those 200 villages, Hezbollah has hidden the bulk of its rocket force, and so you can't eliminate that threat from the air. You have to go village, house to house with armor and infantry. And I think you have to inflict major damage on Lebanon. In 2006, I was in that war. I'm an old soldier, and I was in the first Lebanon war too. And we declared war in both cases in '82 and in 2006 against the terrorists in Lebanon, not against Lebanon itself. And today, I think Israel has learned that there's no distinction between Hezbollah and Lebanon. There is no country called Lebanon. It's a place called Hezbollah. There's no Lebanese army. It's Hezbollah. And I think this time we will declare war against Lebanon itself. At least I hope we will. And that has major ramifications for
So my
Lebanon.
last point, Dr. Oren, my disagreement with her wasn't the threat. It was that she didn't want anyone to do anything. And I want Israel to strike hard and fast, disable the Lebanon power grid, and roll through. And you just told me the most important thing. I was going to ask you, are the 150,000 missiles mostly south of the Litani River, or are they up around Beirut? Can the tanks get there and just basically stop it before it happens?
We have no choice. And this is where I'll disagree with that leftist commentator. We have no choice. What we're hearing, what I'd heard in Washington earlier, was that the expectations will just sit there and get shelled and rocketed until we run out of interceptors. And that is not an option for the state of Israel.
All right, Dr. Oren, you've got to go. You got another interview. Thank you for spending extra time with me. I'll talk to you next week. Follow him on X at Dr. Michael Oren. Thank you, Dr. Oren.